Even though Ippo has been retired from boxing for at least a few years in universe, he kept getting stronger and underwent an intense transformation that nobody expected. In the story, Sendo was slowly making his way towards a fight with Ricardo Martinez for the world title, but before that he wanted revenge by defeating Alfredo Gonzales, the man partially responsible for Ippo's retirement. Meanwhile, Mashiba had his preliminary world title fight, Volg had another title defense, and Wally was set to challenge Ricardo for the world title. However, in each of these fights, Ippo played a major role in helping the fighters win. He sparred with Sendo before the Gonzales fight and even intervened during the match to push Sendo forward. He devised the strategy for Mashiba's preliminary fight in order for him to win. He sparred with Volg and even pushed the world champion to his limits. He also served as Wally's second in his fight against Ricardo. All the while, Ippo kept improving as a coach and trainer, helping the Kamogawa boys succeed. Sendo wanted to fight Alfredo Gonzales, but since Alfredo's camp kept ignoring his challenge, he decided to head straight to Mexico with Hoshi. The problem, however, was neither of them knew any English or Spanish, so they ended up completely lost in Mexico. That's when they randomly ran into the Mexican luchador Mascaras Caramas, whose name I can't still pronounce. That Freddie Mercury lookalike happened to know Japanese and was kind enough to take them to a powerful Mexican boxer. The only issue was he accidentally sent them straight to the strongest boxer there is, Ricardo Martinez, where Sendo requested a public spar with Martinez. Martinez accepted the offer and they started to fight. Meanwhile, Alfredo's patience was also running out with Martinez, and he wanted to have a face-to-face conversation to settle the date of their fight. Just as Gonzales entered the gym, he witnessed his idol on his knees next to Sendo. Alfredo was furious and wanted to brawl with Sendo right here and there. However, Ricardo calmed the situation down and made them an offer they couldn't resist. For the opening act for his title defense, Sendo and Alfredo will fight, with the winner guaranteed a future opportunity to face Ricardo Martinez for the title. Both men accepted the offer and the fight was set. Alfredo viewed this fight as his last chance to fight Martinez in the ring, so he had no intentions of losing. Meanwhile, Sendo viewed this match as his revenge on Gonzales for defeating Ippo and as a way to redeem Ippo's retirement. Meanwhile, Martinez heard that Sendo had only lost twice in his career, both times to Ippo, which actually put him in a good mood. Back in Japan, Ippo was invited to a class reunion where he became the celebrity of the night and was even asked why he retired. He also ran into Aikawa again, you know, that girl from the class who was barely relevant to the plot. Ippo walked her home, where she admitted that she had always kind of liked him and even gave him her number, which in true Ippo fashion he immediately lost. But the important thing was that after all these years, Ippo still felt like he hadn't changed one bit, despite his efforts to become stronger. Later, Ippo and his disciples were invited to Date's gym for a public rookie spar, where other characters like Kobashi, Okita and Oda also brought their students. Ippo expected his disciples to do well, but they got rocked hard and had a rough time recovering. Then out of nowhere the news broke. Sendo had knocked down Martinez. Everyone was shocked and now Sendo was officially set to fight Gonzales. After the spar, as Ippo was leaving, Kobashi asked Date what brought him back to boxing. Date simply replied that it all came from his heart, that even after the fire had completely vanished, the embers were still there. Sendo eventually returned to Japan and made it clear that he only wanted to fight Alfredo because Alfredo had beaten Ippo. This was Sendo's way of challenging someone stronger than himself, since Ippo had beaten him twice. He even asked Ippo for advice on how to take down Alfredo. Ippo pointed out that their styles were actually similar, but Alfredo's jabs might be even stronger. Wanting to train, Ippo grabbed the mitts, only for Sendo to break a piece of Takamura's statue, but don't worry, that could be fixed later. During mitts training, Sendo nearly broke Ippo's nose and got curious about how Ippo would perform. Ippo obliged, taking off the weighted wristbands he had been wearing all the time. With a single jab, he sent the mitts flying out of Sendo's hands, and the impact ricocheted into Takamura's statue, completely destroying it. Sendo left after that, fully accepting that Ippo had become stronger than ever. The news that Sendo was going to fight Martinez even reached Miyata's camp. You might be wondering what Miyata's been up to. Well, he was busy trying to help a gym buddy with his math homework, except that nuthead Miyata couldn't even solve basic algebra. While at work, Mashiba stopped by a store and Miyata, in peak sarcasm mode, asked him to solve the math problems instead. But Mashiba, with the ultimate flex, solved them in his head and left Miyata completely speechless. Meanwhile, Takamura finally noticed that the statue had been completely destroyed. Ippo was assisting Kimura with his training, but Kimura Kimura was struggling hard with his weight management. It got so bad that he passed out multiple times from exhaustion. When nothing else worked, Ippo took drastic measures. He shaved both himself and Kimura bald to help make the weight cut. With Kimura's condition in mind, Ippo came up with a strategy, finishing the fight with just one round to avoid draining Kimura's already limited stamina. When the fight began, Kimura's only goal was to push his opponent into the corner and spam the dragon fish blow, much like Ippo's Dempsey roll. Everything was going according to plan until the round ended, leaving Kimura looking as dry as a mummy. Desperate, Ippo tried reviving Kimura the same way Kamogawa did back in the day, by shoving a bunch of ice into his shorts. Surprisingly, it actually worked. Ippo explained that Kimura just needed one good hit to finish things, but Kimura barely had any stamina left and started having an inner breakdown, thinking he was pathetic for not making any progress since his fight against Mashiba. In that moment, he pulled off a reverse dragonfish blow, securing a KO victory in the end. Next up was Itadaki, who won via decision. Then it was Aoki's turn, where it was revealed that thanks to Takamura's Finger of Doom, he could no longer perform the frog punch. With Sendo's fight against Alfredo coming up soon, Kamogawa had a request for Ippo. He wanted him to go to Mexico to gain first-hand experience watching world-ranked fighters and champions in action, so he could become a better coach. Ippo accepted and flew to Mexico, where he met the Mara brothers on his way to see Sendo. On the day of the weigh-ins, Ippo was recognized by Alfredo and even Ricardo Martinez, metaphorically showcasing that even though Ippo's retired from boxing, the boxing world still revolves around him. Sendo needed to be in a certain mindset to fight a beast like Alfredo Gonzales, so he implored Ippo to have a non-contact spar, meaning they would not touch each other and would stop their punches at the very last second. However, Sendo was getting too much into the spar and was literally trying to punch Ippo for real. Ippo avoided all the oncoming punches and even teased Sendo by sticking with the no contact rule and stopping his punches before connecting with Sendo's body. This gave Sendo negative aura, and he threw smashes at Ippo that even connected with Ippo's headgear but still did not touch Ippo. This moment was enough for Sendo to get heated up for his match against Alfredo, as he witnessed that Ippo, even though retired, still had the skills to make a legitimate comeback to the ring and hopefully have a rematch with Sendo. Actually, Sendo's whole motive for challenging Gonzales and later Ricardo Martinez was to get Ippo out of retirement. Sendo wanted Ippo to challenge him for the world title without having to slowly climb his way up through the rankings, going straight to the final fight. When Sendo's and Alfredo's match began, Sendo threw a smash right from the start and was ready to brawl. Alfredo, however, remained cool at it and punched Sendo by relying on the fundamentals like Ricardo Martinez does. Whatever Sendo did, Alfredo saw it coming and slowly decimated Sendo, leaving him no options but to take the incoming punches. For the entire first round, all Sendo could do was tank every punch Alfredo threw at him. Sendo got rightfully upset with his performance in the first round and wanted to speed things up. In the second round, when Sendo was still being hit by a series of punches, he called Alfredo out for holding himself back and not being the same guy who defeated Ippo in Japan. He wanted the Alfredo to use his real boxing style for the fight. Now that Sendo had memorized Alfredo's way of fighting, he pushed Alfredo into the corners. Alfredo lost his temper and revealed his true savage boxing style, pushing Sendo back. This was exactly what Sendo aimed for, and they both started to brawl in the ring. Sendo was first dominated in the exchange, then out of frustration he threw a smash that Alfredo was able to block, lifting him up and pushing him away. By the end of the round, Alfredo was the stronger one standing, while Sendo was barely able to stay on his feet. Nothing changed on the third round. They continued to brawl, with Gonzales having the upper hand and Sendo almost passing out. But Sendo kept grinding his teeth and refused to go down, further enraging Alfredo Gonzales. Both fighters were out of stamina and were ready to go all out during the fourth round. Even though it looked like Alfredo continued to dominate, the damage Sendo inflicted started to pile up, and Alfredo was now getting overwhelmed. Sendo's aura was immaculate, and Alfredo acknowledged that Sendo was a formidable opponent. When Sendo was getting pushed back, the ref intervened and warned that the tapings on his gloves were loose. Sendo's camp tried to stall time for Sendo to recover, but Ippo told them to cut it off since they were cooling Sendo's wild nature by stalling. Sendo appreciated this moment and decided to go all out. Reaching his limit, Sendo decided to only throw wide smashes to finish Alfredo off for good. Even though Alfredo saw the punches coming a mile away, he acknowledged that if they connected, he would go out cold and was rightfully frightened by these punches. Alfredo managed to block one smash with his fist and another by blocking it with his forehead. The smash to the forehead broke Sendo's right fist, but it still was not enough to bring him down. Both fighters simultaneously punched each other, which would KO any other featherweight in the series. Sendo wanted to finish the fight and gave everything he had on his last left fist. fist, which Alfredo was also able to counter. Sendo appeared to go down, only to come to his senses at the last second and send one final smash that lifted Gonzales up and put him down to the mat, where he ultimately lost via KO. With this win, Alfredo then passed down the torch to defeat Martinez to Sendo, and he himself retired. Sendo then fully embraced the Mexican people, and then the main event started. Ricardo Martinez's title defense against the former WBC featherweight champion Billy McCollum. Billy had relinquished his title just for the chance to face Ricardo for the WBA belt. Since the boxing sanctions don't allow Ricardo to unify titles, this was the only way Billy could challenge him. Otherwise, Ricardo would just hold all the belts indefinitely, with no one having a chance to dethrone him until he voluntarily gave them up. Ricardo had high expectations of McCollum. After all, he was a world champion who utilized the Philly shell, a defensive stance that allows for both offense and counterattacks while maintaining their strong jab. The fight began, and while Ricardo was mildly impressed, Billy did zero damage. During an inner monologue, Ricardo reflected on his existence. He considered himself barely human, someone who took boxing too seriously, yet never had anyone push him to his limits. He felt isolated because no one could bring out the best in him. At one point, he even considered letting Billy land a hit just to feel something, but he immediately dismissed the idea as disrespectful to boxing itself. Instead, he just spammed his jab, breaking Billy's arm in the process. By the end of the fight, Ricardo was still unchallenged, desperately waiting for someone, anyone, to finally push him to his true limits. Ippo watched the fight and recalled Takamura's words about true monsters being extraordinary. Back in Japan, Kimura had a yee-yah haircut due to malnutrition, so he had to wear a wig. Meanwhile, Ippo returned home, bringing a bunch of Mexican masks with him. Sometime later, Kumi came to Ippo with big news. Mashiba had secured a preliminary world title match against a former world champion. Ippo was unwillingly invited to Mashiba's pre-fight ceremony, where Mashiba made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with Ippo. Despite the tension, Ippo shared his research on Mashiba's opponent, Juan Garcia. He dumped a ton of information, but the important takeaway was that Garcia was an infighter with a weak lower body. Ippo suggested a strategy: play defensive in the first half, then go all in offensively in the second. However, Ippo completely ruined the mood by pointing out that losing a preliminary world title match had basically ended his career. This killed the vibe of the entire ceremony, and he got chewed out by everyone. Meanwhile, Imai had another title defense, this time against Hoshi, with Sendo in Hoshi's corner. Imai was on a 4-fight, first round KO streak, so when the fight started he went straight for the kill. But Hoshi wasn't backing down. Both fighters went all out, turning the match into an absolute slugfest. It became a battle of endurance and stamina. Unfortunately for Hoshi, he was the first to break, allowing Imai to finish him off with a brutal KO combination. After the fight, Imai called out Sendo, demanding that he take their generation of fighters seriously. But since Sendo was busy preparing for Martinez, he just pointed at Ippo and told Imai to wait for him instead. Then shocking news broke. Martinez announced that he would not be fighting Sendo next. Instead, he had chosen to fight Wally, one of Ippo's former opponents. Wally had been making waves ever since his fight with Ippo, racking up 24 wins. Wally and his coach even flew to America to train, where they met with Volg and Daniki again. Since Volg was also scheduled to defend his title at the same event, the two trained together. The reason Martinez picked Wally over Sendo was because he wanted to get used to fighting someone wild before facing Sendo, and there was no one wilder in that division than Wally. Plus, the fact that Wally's only loss had come from Ippo further piqued Martinez's interest. Ricardo noted that despite Ippo's retirement, the boxing world still revolved around him. Mashiba's world title preliminary match was next, with Itadaki on the undercard, who won again via decision. Next was Mashiba's fight, which Ippo and Kumi watched, which also got Mashiba mad for him being too close to his sister. When Mashiba's fight began, he lifted his guard up and actually followed Ippo's strategy. For the first round, all he could do was block himself from the punches, which got him completely out of gas and desperate. He considered tripping Garcia like he did in his fight against Miyata, but hesitated until the 4th round, where his inner demon just said to do it. But even then, he pulled back and remembered why he had to fight fairly. There were people believing in him, and with his loner attitude, he wouldn't have gotten so far. So he set his cheating aside and was now on the offensive to fight it out with Garcia. In the 7th round, Mashiba was getting banged up, accumulating a lot of damage, and was about to fall until Ippo yelled at him to keep going. That's when he remembered Ippo's words words about Garcia being weak against body shots, so Mashiba reorganized Garcia's gut and gave him some awesome combos until Garcia landed a perfect counter. Mashiba was about to go down but held out for one last shot that successfully connected. When he saw that Garcia was still standing, he went all out, hit him with the flicker ending combo and saw him down on the mat, ending the match. With this fight, he secured a one-way ticket to fight the lightweight world champion. Mashiba recognized that without Ippo's help, he would have been cooked, and even acknowledged that Ippo also had to endure all the pain in the ring to keep going, accepting him as somebody strong. Then he saw Ippo hugging it out with Kumi, which got him enraged, and he shouted a lot of bad words before passing out. The funny thing is, Ippo only understood that Kumi's Oni-chan finally won and that he would be a world champion soon, which obviously was not what he said. We then learned that Mashiba actually broke his jaw in that fight and needed some time to recover before his big world title fight. Sendo and his camp were preparing to see Wally vs Martinez in Mexico, so Sendo invited Ippo to tag along and watch the fight live, which Ippo accepted. Ippo flew to Mexico where the Mata brothers escorted Sendo and Ippo to the gym, but then they ran over somebody on the way. Both Ippo and Sendo thought they were cooked, but it turned out to be Wally who dodged the incoming car. At the gym, Volg and the boys reunited, and Wally and Sendo even had a spar where Sendo was not able to hit Wally at all. But then Ippo instructed Sendo to hit Wally's lower body, which Sendo obliged, but Wally then ran off, ultimately ending the spar. Volg also wanted a spar with Ippo since his opponent was also an in-fighter. Volg wanted Ippo without any handicaps, so Ippo took off the weighted wristbands to go full out in the spar. Ippo wanted to pay Volg back for assisting him back when he was in Japan and helped Ippo with the Dempsey counter in the spar in preparation for Ippo's Japanese title defense against Sawamura. So in this spar, Ippo went all out the second the bell rang, catching Volg off guard. Volg had to cool Ippo off by attempting to hit him with the White Fang. But remember, this guy retired because of accumulated damage to the head, like what the hell Volg? But Ippo had the retirement power boost and was able to catch Volg's White Fangs with ease. Ippo pushed even further, so Volg tried to hit Ippo with a powerful left straight. Ippo dodged that also and gave Volg a heavy left liver blow. Now enraged, Volg unleashed the Heian that he learned from Daniki and followed it with another White Fang to Ippo's head. Despite Ippo getting sluggish, he encouraged himself to be more helpful, deflecting Volg's jab and landing a right straight. Volg answered with an uppercut and then remembered that the guy he's fighting against has initially retired because he was close of getting punch drunk. Ippo lowered his body and unleashed the Gazelle Punch, sending Volg flying into the corner. Ippo then took out the Dempsey rope for the first time since his retirement. Volg anticipated the counter but was surprised when Ippo went low to hit him with an uppercut, before Ippo could chop Volg's head off. Sendo intervened and subsequently ended the spar with everyone displeased with the outcome. Sendo scolded Volg for hitting Ippo for real, considering the possibility that Ippo might be punch drunk and retired. Volg, despite being the world champion with newfound skills, acknowledged that Ippo nullified them and even sensed killing intent from him, questioning why a retired boxer like Ippo is upgrading himself if he's not returning to the ring. Daniki intervened to explain that there is something inside of Ippo that yearns to step back into the ring, but it requires a certain trigger to be activated, or else it will remain dormant forever. Martinez and Wally finally faced off, where Martinez confirmed the title wouldn't change, while Wally was just goofing around and taunting Martinez for being so serious. Miguel then revealed that Ippo would also be in Wally's corner as a second during the fight to gather more knowledge as a coach. Volg's title fight was first, where he wanted to end it as quickly as possible since Ippo broke Volg's ribs during the spar. He managed to end the fight in just one round, and with that, the fight is done, and Wally's match was next. Wally's ultimate goal is to become a champion to raise awareness about the mistreatment of animals and eventually become a zoologist, which is very wholesome of him. On the day of the fight, the headline for the match was the Alpha vs Omega, which is very characteristic of them. Wally, the Alpha, is a wild beast making his way to the top, wanting to overthrow the dominant Omega, who is lonely at the top and awaits the challenge he has longed for so long. When both of them finally got into the ring, Ricardo noticed Ippo in Wally's corner and questioned what his role was in the fight. His coach wanted him to not get flustered about this and just focus on the match. Ricardo accepted this and the fight was about to begin. Ricardo's game plan, as always, was to gather data about his opponent in the first round and slowly tear them apart throughout the fight. What even he himself was not anticipating at all was Wally sprinting towards him and performing acrobatic moves to fight him. Nobody expected much from the fight, but Wally proved everyone wrong, even Ricardo, by hitting him first clean on the head, causing everyone to lose their minds. Ricardo realized that he could not afford to be distracted for even a second second, and tried his best to prevent Wally from getting the upper hand. However, Wally kept running around and using his unpredictability to keep Ricardo guessing his next move, leaving Ricardo unable to do anything in the first round of the match. Ricardo was so accustomed to the same kinds of boxes that Wally was like a whole unknown species to him. He admitted that he didn't know what to do and decided to stick to the fundamentals of boxing and gather more data about Wally. So even in the second round, all Ricardo could do was defend himself while Wally capitalized on this and managed to land some shots. Ricardo further solidified that Wally was just too much for him, stating that he was indeed strong. However, Ricardo noticed Wally's strategy and what his ultimate aim was. Wally was trying to hit Ricardo's eyes to blind him enough to land his unpredictable punches from angles Ricardo couldn't see. Realizing he could no longer stay on the defensive, Ricardo decided to throw hands with Wally for the remainder of the round, resulting in neither of them landing a significant hit on each other. Wally noticed that Ricardo was getting more aggressive, so he also shifted gears and began utilizing the ropes to increase his speed and agility. Ricardo felt like he was trapped in a jungle with the wild beast slowly preparing to attack him when he was off guard. Wally taunted him for not making a move, which managed to get Ricardo off his defensive strategy, prompting him to change the narrative of the fight. Ricardo threw his ghost jab, which Wally managed to dodge while landing clean hits on Ricardo. By the end of the round, Ricardo remained cool-headed and continued to apply his strategic style in the fight to nullify Wally's attacks. In the next round, Ricardo still utilized his ghost jab and mentioned that even in the face of true genius, he could only stick to the basics to tear his opponent apart. It was then that he finally managed to get his first hit on Wally. By now, over 5 rounds had passed and Wally was getting out of breath faster. Ricardo started to land good shots and Wally was beginning to lose his edge. Ricardo capitalized on this and managed to bring Wally to the brink, eventually giving him a knockdown. Wally got back up and wanted to continue where he left off, but Ricardo would not let him take the advantage anymore and kept throwing punches to immobilize Wally. Wally couldn't do much and before the end of the round threw a smash, which Ricardo managed to block, but it caught him off guard. Wally, now completely exhausted, got permission from his coach to go all out. Ricardo was impressed that Wally still had spirit left before the end of the round, but in the 6th round he was caught completely off guard by what Wally was doing. Ricardo was now questioning whether or not Wally could push him to go all out, since Ricardo himself had never shown his true fighting style to anyone because nobody had been able to push him this far. Alfredo Gonzales knew beneath Ricardo's stick to the basic style lays a vicious aggressive style that he hid from everyone. Ricardo decided to slug it out with Wally to see whether he could be pushed, and they exchanged blows relentlessly. During the exchange we get a glimpse of Ricardo's past where he is seen asking his coach what true strength really is. This is the same question that motivated Ippo to start boxing and is Ricardo's reason for boxing as well. Ricardo managed to break Wally's ribs and knocked him down again. Without wasting a single second, Wally quickly got back up, not giving Ricardo a moment to rest. Wally, smiling, managed to push Ricardo back. Ricardo admitted that Wally had become a monster, an important term Takamura had referenced many times in order to survive in the world of boxing. Wally knew that he was at his limit, so in a last-ditch effort, he threw smashes to showcase Sendo what to do when he eventually fights against Ricardo. Martinez, upon dodging the smash, began to show his true colors and started to smile, with bloodlusted eyes looking down at Wally. He threw a wide right hook, which Wally was able to withstand, only for Ricardo to follow that up with a straight to finish him off. Ricardo wanted to express his gratitude for how amazing Wally was during that fight, but Wally was just goofing around again. We later learned that Wally suffered a blind eye from that fight and could never box again. Martinez and Sendo had a massive stare down, confirming that their fight was going to be even more insane. After this intense fight, Ippo returned to Japan where he first met up with Kamogawa and expressed his experience in Mexico and how much more he loved boxing thanks to Martinez's performance. Kamogawa knew the fire was still burning hot in Ippo and went on to mid-train with him. Then Ippo met up with Kumi and his disciples and gave them masks again. Ippo's disciples expressed that they finally wanted to prove their worth and wanted to take the pro test, which Ippo was first against, but then accepted that they could have their test soon. Mashiba and Sendo's world title fights were now closer than ever, which Takamura predicted that both of them would lose since they lacked certain specialities. Ippo was first glad that everyone was moving up in the world, but then he felt a sense of being left out. And that was the third part of Ippo's post-retirement progress saga. Next video will be the last one, covering Ippo and Mashiba's training and Mashiba's title fight. So if you've enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more Ippo content. I'm the Reading Crow and thanks for watching.